Today I'm going to do a review of the watch that has probably the best dial under $1,000, maybe even more, and it's based Seiko, so let's get into it. A little about Seiko as a brand. I won't go too much into their history because it's vast and long and just there's a lot to go over. So quick highlights. It was pretty much started in 1892 with the Seikosha brand. From there, in 1924, the first Seiko branded watch itself was produced. Innovations between the 1920s to the 1970s included things like Dia-Shock and the magic lever system. And then I think towards the 1970s or the 1980s, don't quote me perfectly, Seiko started mass producing their quartz watches and practically single-handedly almost brought the whole watch industry down. So that's cool. And near the 1990s, they revealed their spring drive, which was a hybrid quartz mechanical technology, which they've been developing for about 20 years at that point, I think. And Seiko is more than just Seiko. They have Seiko Presage, they have Grand Seiko, they have Creedor, and you can really find a Seiko at any price point, and a lot of the times they offer great value at their price points. So let's get into this watch here. First, some general dimensions. Zero that. We take the watch, get a diameter of about 40.5, which is what the stated diameter is. So it's slightly less than 40.5, really close to 40 actually. Got a lug to lug of about 47.5. A thickness of pretty much 12 dead on, and a lug width of 20. So some general specifications on the watch is we got a domed Hardlex crystal, we have a Seiko 4R35 movement, which beats at 21,600 beats per hour. It is hacking, it's hand winding. Other than that, water resistance, I think 50 meters. Let's see, yeah, 50 meters there. Nothing to really write home about. No loom on this watch. It's a dress leaning watch. And other than that, let's get into it. So starting with the dial, because the dial is what this watch is about. Let's just take a second to just admire that. That's cool. So as we can see here, we have this sunburst, almost fume kind of changing from black to blue to black to darker blue to lighter blue kind of dial, which is super crazy. We'll zoom in later and we can actually see there's super small striations all throughout, and it's just super cool. So other than that, we have the Applied Seiko logo, we have applied hour markers, a railroad outer track. The applied markers themselves are pretty cool. They have a lot of dimensionality to them. It's like a flat part and two side edges. So a lot of polishing going on there, a lot of light that's played with. We have a date wheel that's not in blue to match the dial, but in black, so it kind of stands out less, which I like. And then for these hands, as you can kind of tell there, we have a brush side and a polished side. So it just adds a nice little flair, dimensionality, and an air of craftsmanship to these Dauphine style hands. And we have this little needle second counterbalance, which is common on also the Sarb series, the Seiko Sarb 033 and 035. So other than saying that this watch dial looks gorgeous, I guess let's zoom in on it so we can actually admire it. Alright, so here we are on a more macro level. You can tell there's really a lot of dimensionality in that Applied Seiko logo. It almost has even a rustic type, super cool metal-y feel to it. And if you just look at this dial, you see how there's a bunch of just fine lines that make up the pattern. And you can obviously tell, you see those darker kind of ridges. Those are very much so visible from the watch face. but it's not until you get up to this close, you really look intently at it, that you see it's made up of all these different lined textures that really just come together to make it play with the light. And as you can see, the smaller lines are of a lighter shade, so I think that's what gives it a lot of that sunburst color changing effect. If you look at the hands, very nicely done, nice and sharp, good distinction between the polish and brush sections. Not a lot of defects in the hands themselves, not really a lot of defects in the logo. If we want to look at this date window, pretty well done. See some small maybe dust or particles or possibly bad finishing on the marker there, but you know, it's a $200 to $300 watch and you can't really expect the world. But you can see how faceted that marker is and how it just plays with the light. We have the nicely printed hour, minute track rather, that goes all the way around. And yeah, this dial is just gorgeous. The printing's done well. The texturing, super fine, super detailed, super cool. And yeah, really at this price point, you're really not going to get much better than this. So moving on to the case of the watch, there's really not a lot to talk about. We have an all brushed case. It is a pieced finish. We have a very slim appearing mid case, which when it's on the wrist, since it has the curved case back, it really sinks in, so it really does appear a lot slimmer than that 13mm dimension would, you know, make you assume that it is. We have that nice domed crystal, which adds a lot of dimensionality to the watch, but it also is prone to either scratching or chipping because it is exposed and it is not sapphire. So that's something to always think about. We have this awesome huge crown, which has a really nice shape to it because it starts off thinner and gets larger towards the ends. Oh, that's not focusing. Yeah, nice shape to that crown. Very good texture, very grippy, very easy to wind. Don't necessarily have to wind it because it is an automatic watch, but the option's always there. If we go to the case back, we get a nice look at that movement with the Seiko gold rotor. Not really much to write home about in terms of finishing. It is not bad to look at, but it's also nothing to write home about. We have the general text information, water resistant 50 meters, stainless steel. We have the Seiko made in Japan, and then just some numbers over there. So that was the case. Now let's see how this watch wears. Earlier I was wearing my Zodiac Sea Dragon. So here is the watch on my 6.5 inch wrist. Now, yes, it does wear a little large. It is a 40mm watch and it is pretty much all dial. So is it more suited to larger wrists? I would say yes. Can smaller wristed people wear it? Yes, I can wear it fine. It does not overhang. The curvature in the case helps it wear very nicely. And I would say it's just up to you whether you like your watches bigger or you like your watches smaller. I can easily wear this watch. I can wear a 32mm watch. I'm comfortable with both. So it just really becomes taste at that point and just knowing whether or not your wrist span can take that 47.5mm lug to lug distance. But overall, the watch wears very comfortably. It wears very thinly on the wrist, in spite of what the dimensions might say. Some of the height's coming from the crystal, some of the height's coming from the dome and the case back, but the dome and the case back sits onto the wrist. So that's really not something you have to worry about. But other than that, the all polish really stands out. It makes sense because it is a dressier type watch. I don't know if they would have made this in a brushed finish, if it would look cooler, maybe just draw only the attention to the dial, but I guess that maybe would defeat the dressier type purpose. Let's talk pros and cons. So for this watch, I would say the most undoubtedly 100% pro is the watch dial. The dial is amazing. The way it changes colors in the light, the awesome just how detailed the texture is. how sometimes the dome just plays with either the lighting or just the dial itself, making it appear almost lacquered at times. It's just a beautiful dial. The applied indices add a lot to it as well. We have the crazy reflections from the different color changings in the dial, mirrored as well in changing the markers, changing and catching light at all different angles. So there's just really a lot to love when you're looking at this dial. I love that they made the date wheel in black because I just feel like it goes better. I think if they made it in white, it would have stuck out too much. So great design choice there. The crown they could have made smaller, but I think the crown's cool for what it is. It's different. It's unique. What I also really like about it is that it's a 40 millimeter watch. It is on the larger side, but I think it is very wearable. Again, my 6.5-inch wrist was able to wear it no problem. It didn't look oversized. It is a slim watch from a case profile point of view. Yes, the crystal adds height. Yes, the case back adds height, but overall, the way it wears on the wrist is very slimly, and I really like that about the watch. So some cons. There's not a lot. The original bracelet I don't like a lot because I feel like it's almost a sporty, trying to be dressy kind of bracelet, and I don't think it just fits the watch that perfectly. I feel like it looks more at home on like a Milanese bracelet or something like, I don't know. I haven't really tried it on anything other than a Milanese, so I'm gonna just stick to that for myself. Other cons, there's not a lot. Some people won't like the fact that it's a Hardlex crystal. I'm okay with it. Yes, it can scratch. Yes, it can break. Yes, it can, you know, show marks easier than sapphire, but there's benefits and drawbacks to either or. So you just have to decide whether or not for $200 or $300 if not having sapphire is a deal breaker for you. And for me, I think one of the biggest downsides to this watch is the fact that it's hard to find straps that match it. For me, I love changing straps on a watch, and this strap combination I think goes really well. I think the color of the cork works. I think the texture of the cork is kind of cool and just adds to a more casual kind of unique look to this watch. But I would say in other situations it's just hard to find straps. The blue's tricky to match. The kind of overly dressy nature of it's kind of hard to find other straps with. I usually love to put purlins on watches, but for some reason I did not like purlins on this watch. So that's something I guess to keep in mind if you love to change straps and you don't have something in mind completely. I know it does look good with brown leathers, so you always have that option. But that's just me nitpicking at the watch because overall, bottom line, this watch is awesome. For what you get, I mean, honestly, under $1,000, under $2,000, this is an amazing dial. This is a cool, unique looking watch. It comes in other colors, and there's really not much you can go wrong with. Oh, one thing I did want to mention as a kind of con is that for the hands, the hour hand does not go all the way out to the track there. And I feel like it would have looked better if it went all the way out. It's kind of some wasted space. Same with the seconds hand, it doesn't go all the way out to the seconds track. Possibly the hour hand's okay because it does touch all the hour markers, but the seconds hand, maybe it could be slightly longer. I'm just super nitpicking at this point, but overall it's a great watch, beautiful watch. If you're on the fence about it, I would say go for it. There's nothing really that should hold you back other than maybe the Hardlex, but it's such a cool, fun watch to have, and it just looks good. Thanks for watching.